We start with Democratic Attorney General Chris Mays. Back in February, Mays tweeted this, quote, "I had my amazing daughter through IVF. Understand this. I will fight like hell to protect the procedure and the medical professionals who specialize in it." Today, with in vitro fertilization under attack in some states and at the center of the debate over reproductive rights in the 2024 election, Chris Mays is talking about this very personal experience. Chris Mays, welcome back to Square Off.
Thanks, Bram.
Well, we've never gone down this road before.
No.
Why are you telling your story now?
You know, I'm talking about this because we have a presidential candidate and vice presidential candidate in Donald Trump and J.D. Vance who basically want to get rid of IVF and prevent women like me from having their children through IVF. I mean, J.D. Vance voted against a bill in Congress to protect access to IVF. And Bram, as you know, so many women today and families are using IVF to have their babies, and you know, to have a presidential and vice presidential candidate who would deny access to that is totally unacceptable.
I want to come back to the politics in a minute, but let's start with your decision. Where were you at in your life, and why did you decide to use IVF?
Yeah, well, like a lot of women today, I had a career and I was a member of the Arizona Corporation Commission. I did that during my 30s. I served 2 terms on the Corporation Commission. I felt like it was tough to have a baby when I was an elected official. I was single. And by the time I hit the age 40, I realized I had a sort of a moment where I was like, I want to be a mom. I desperately want to be a mom. And when you're 40 or 41 years old, it's really hard to become a mom the old-fashioned way. So, you know, I turned to IVF, and I am so blessed and thankful because now I have an 11-year-old daughter, and I'm a mom, and it's the best part of my life. And we need to make sure that we protect that for women going forward in this country.
And it is not an easy process, not one that couples take lightly.
No, it is. It is absolutely not easy. It's emotionally difficult. It's lengthy. It can be expensive, but it's an incredibly important technology and tool. And again, the idea that we have a vice presidential candidate in J.D. Vance, the Republicans want to deny women access to this, is wrong. Whether it is them trying to prevent access to abortion services and reproductive services, or them trying to prevent access to IVF because it's not their vision of how a woman should become pregnant, it's just wrong.
So let's talk about that, because they would not ban IVF. Donald Trump has said he would leave that up to the states, but it involves the use of the embryos typically, and regulation of that.
Right. Well, I mean, let's remember, this is the Trump Supreme Court that allowed the Dobbs decision to send this issue back to the states. States like Arizona have 2 abortion bans. We have a personhood bill that is still wending its way through the courts.
And that is the one that affects embryos.
Embryos, right. And the issue here is, and I guess this is why some of these Republicans oppose IVF, is when you're going through IVF, you create multiple embryos. And some of those embryos, sadly, have genetic infirmities that will cause a miscarriage. That's what causes miscarriages. And so you don't implant those. And so some of those are given over to scientific research or discarded, and that's what they consider abortion. And that is just ridiculous. And I guess that's why they oppose IVF. But in either case, we need to protect IVF for the future generations.
Kari Lake, the U.S. Senate candidate, Republican Senate candidate, has said she will advocate for increased access to fertility treatment for women struggling to get pregnant. IVF is extremely important. Is that an important statement?
I think it's an important statement. I'm pretty sure it's not the statements they were always making. You know, I think that you see J.D. Vance and Donald Trump trying desperately to backtrack from their anti-IVF views, they're not going to be able to do that. They said what they said. We have to believe what they originally said, and we have to believe that at some point, not only are they going to be going after a nationwide abortion ban, but they're also going to attack IVF.
Let's talk about politics now. Your office's election preparations. The New York Times reported on a sweeping preparations by the Trump's allies to get ready to go to court in the fall and even before then, even starting now. Are you aware of those efforts, and how is your office preparing to respond to that?
Yeah, we're aware of those efforts, and let's be real. They tried this in 2022, right? And in 2020 by attempting to overthrow American democracy. And so, as you know, in 2022 and the months after that, we opposed the attempts in Cochise County. Went to court to fight the attempts in Cochise County to engage in delay and in hand counts. We also informed Mojave County when they were being asked by these extremists to engage in hand counts that they too would be acting unlawfully if they did that. You know, hand counts, number one, are illegal in Arizona, and number two, hand counts would cause what they want, which is chaos after the election. They want chaos, they want to delay, and we've been very deliberately making it clear, Bram, that we're not going to put up with that in the state of Arizona. So yes, it's a concern, but we feel like we're ready for it.
Fake electors case appears to be fully engaged now. There are motions to dismiss on the part of the defendants. Without getting into the nitty-gritty, is it still on the same timeline you had mentioned a while back that you expect some trials to begin in 2025?
Yeah, I think it's still on that track. We're going to see a lot of motion work coming up in the next month or so, and we are going to have a very significant announcement to make early next week.
Significant announcement.
Yeah, and that's all I'll say about it. But you heard it here first.
A witness, perhaps, or a defendant flipping?
Something along that line, yeah.
So you're saying this will likely go to trial. Some of the cases will likely go to trial in 2025, but it appears as that one of these defendants, might flip.
I think that's accurate.
And we'll hear more about that next week.
Very soon, yes. We're making progress in the case, and we feel good about the case. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of motions flying in both directions, but we feel good about the case. And, you know, we have some of the best prosecutors in the country working in my office, and we intend to see justice be done.
Have to end it there. Chris Mays, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story.
Thanks, Bram.